Did you guys already test the live stream?
Yeah. IT's been all over it.
Let's see how good our IT is.
He promised we would not get Zoom bombed.
I guarantee it.
What a damn.
We use our competitors on.
Do we have other department heads?
We checked in with them earlier, like for Miranda, so they're gonna help us back on there.
Okay.
Miranda, Earl.
Just let you know, Scott Williams is here, but the webcam limit is reached, so
So we should
not
put
able
all
to share my.
speaker down for now?
What do you mean?
Well, Scott just said he can't webcam because it's the limit's reached. So if we
Yeah,
Oh,
it's
okay.
just a,
rather
the limit.
Scott than
I think we have to ask them. Can we have Peter and Jenny for now turn off your webcam?
Looks like it just worked. Somebody must have. Thank you.
Jan dropped off, but
Okay, we're good.
we're going on department heads rather than outside.
Yeah.
That should leave a space for Miranda, but then Earl might not have one. Is 6 the limit?
Weather matches his walls. This is the best part about this, seeing everyone. City clerk, you ready? I am ready.
Start the recording.
Let me start my deputy city clerk, / IT.
We're good.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for coming to today's Tuesday, April 7th meeting. If you can please rise and stand, face aside and join me with I salute. Right hand over your heart. Let me begin.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, and I want to welcome everybody who's webbing in and in our audience. City Clerk, can you do roll, please?
Mayor Ibarra.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Lopez. Here. Councilmember Davis.
Here.
Councilmember Menke. Here. Councilmember Gonzalez.
Here. Do we have any changes to the agenda?
I just would like to note that item number 1 is being continued to a date uncertain.
Great. May I have a motion to approve the agenda as posted? May I have a second?
Second.
Yes, sir.
Mayor Ibarra.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Lopez.
Yes.
Councilmember Davis.
Yes.
Councilmember Menke.
Yes.
Councilmember Gonzalez.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Great, thank you. We'll now take public comment from members of the audience. At this time, the public is encouraged to address the city council on any matter that is within the subject matter jurisdiction of the city council. The public will also be given a chance to comment on matters which are on the posted agenda during city council deliberation on those specific matters. Are there any public comments? Seeing no one present to address the council, we'll go on to presentation. Actually, item number 2.
Item number 2 is the fiscal year 2020-2021 budget study session. City Administrator Santino and Finance Director Williams will present the item.
Good morning, Honorable Mayor and City Council members. Scott Williams will be presenting, the budget for 2020, 2021. This is our first workshop. I'm pleased to announce that our budget is completed. We encourage you to ask as many questions as possible. In the years past, we have used a different format and we've had different departments report on the budget. This year, we are using a new format where the finance director will be incorporating all the departments into one budget and giving information out to City Council. So with that, I'll turn it over to Scott Williams.
Yes, good morning, Honorable Mayor, honorable members of the City Council. Thank you for the opportunity to present for the Council's consideration the operating and capital budgets for fiscal year 2020 and 21. I would like to note for anyone viewing that copies of the draft budget have been made available on the city's website as part of this staff report. And as always, for anyone viewing who may not be familiar with the process, the fiscal year under discussion this morning begins July 1 of this year and runs through June 30 of next year. We begin our discussion this morning with a look at both long and short-term strategies as we prepared the budget this year. As part of our long-term strategy, we have three critical elements, the three critical elements of fiscal accountability, sustainability of both operations and finances, and operating efficiency. And this is a strategy of both operations within the organization and fiscal responsibility working together. We also see this year the short-term in our short-term strategy is the management of uncertainty. With the current state of emergency, the ongoing challenge is to estimate impacts in the coming year on businesses within the City of Vernon and how this will ultimately affect the city. This has implications for both the general fund, particularly on sales tax, as well as the revenue of the enterprise fund. I will say this is an ongoing activity of monitoring, and City Administrator is being continuously updated on activity related to these available resources. We begin with a review of the structural deficit of the general fund. And what we see here in 8 years of history, the graphic of the slide demonstrates the structural deficit that previously existed. Now, this is per the audited financial statements, but most particularly, as you look at this graphic, you see the progress that has been made in the last 4 years. And as you look at that, this is actually a great story because we go from the extreme deficits on the far left-hand side, and we see improvement until finally this current fiscal year, June 2019, that the most recent year that we closed with a small fund balance of $1.2 million. I'd also like to add that years like this upcoming year demonstrate why we build reserves for the unforeseen as well as the economic certainty that will follow. So look at the numbers. First up, we have the general fund expenditures budget at a glance. The table shows the year-over-year comparison of the fiscal year 2020, 19, and 20 budget. This is the fiscal year that we are currently in, and this is compared against the upcoming 2021 proposed budget presented to the council. And in the right-hand column, we see a variance between the fiscal years for each of the categories. And in this case, you see the changes. Just some brief comments on the changes. the $119,000, as well as the $900,000 in salaries and benefits. These are the result of MOUs that are currently in place. There's things like step increases, small percentage increases, as well as primarily the pension costs that we are aware of, continuously monitoring and addressing. The $723,000 increase to supplies and services, this is primarily the result of a one-time conversion cost to the County of Los Angeles as we complete the transition fire and then have the savings in the out years. And then you see a variance of $2 million in capital. And again, the majority of this is accounted for with one-time conversion costs as we pay down the lease on a couple of engines and some other equipment. But there's also a project in there that is notable for the entire city, and this is in the IT budget, and this is our upcoming ERP, or Enterprise Resource Planning software conversion and deployment. So phase one represents approximately $900,000.
Scott, can you talk briefly about ERP?
Yes. So this is noted here in this slide. Currently, we have an ERP system that is about 12 years old. It represented a lot of progress at the time, but what we think of when we think of a financial system these days, it's not simply an accounting system. It is a fully integrated system of management of resources across the entire organization. So yes, the core of it is accounting, accounts payable, budget, payroll, everything to do with numbers that we would expect, but it has a completely integrated human resources module, integrated capital management modules, project accounting, and it spans the whole city. It's really going to be a great surge forward, and it's going to impact to the positive every department within the city, and just change the way we do our work. We're moving to a cloud-based solution. This is where it will be the product will be hosted and managed by the firm itself. And again, the selection, the recommended selection, is the same company that we've been with for a dozen years, but they've really honed this product and right-sized it for an organization the size of Vernon. So this will be a tremendous project. It will span a couple of years, and it will involve every department in the city. Any questions or comments on that? Okay.
Any questions? No. Thank you.
Okay. So I want to mention what is on the slide in front of us. These were the comments just mentioned. A couple of places throughout the presentation, we have listed these explanations for reference purposes, whether that be coming back to it or during the presentation for the benefit of the council and viewers. Next up, we have the general fund revenue in this pie chart. And there's a lot of numbers and colors going on here, but what we have are the general fund revenues distributed by major type. In other words, what are the sources of revenues and available resources to the city? The data represented in the graphic shows the available resources. As we look at these groupings, taxes occupies most of our general fund revenues with more than 68% of the total. And among these are the most stable: property taxes, utility users tax, parcel tax, and the increasingly important to our ongoing discussion, sales and use tax. Next, we see a fairly even distribution of multiple categories making up the other 32%. These are revenues from other governments such as grants, licenses, and permits, and the estimation of the use of fund balance. Similar chart, general fund expenditures. In this chart, we have distributed by major grouping and departments. And this is a quick glance at where those resources we just looked at are spent. So we can see that more than 75% with these three sections here at the general fund occur within the larger departments. This includes public safety, general government, and that's all of the administrative as well as back office and support, like our department, IT, HR. And we see also a large segment of capital outlay representing 10%, and that's managed primarily by Public Works. And again, a reference slide with the major categories and explanations. Some of these titles might not be intuitive to every viewer, so we see where some of these categories roll up, such as the taxes category includes the sales and use taxes as mentioned, parcels, licenses and permits. We see business as well as building and planning that is expected. What we mean by intergovernmental, what we talk about grants for public safety or stormwater costs. Over on this side, this is what we mean by charges for services. These are our inspections where fees are charged. We have things like a state transfer where one revenue is taken from one source by the state and simply passed through to us. And we see the ongoing sunsetted activity of the successor agency to the Vernon Redevelopment Agency, and those are simply bond payments and nothing else.
Scott, I have a question. On the pie chart for the general fund expenditure, the public safety part of it, that's 25, is that including the conversion county?
Yes. Okay. So the way we budgeted that this year, because the transition isn't going to occur immediately, we budgeted for the most part, how would we get through the entire year with fire, but we built in these one-time costs. Some of them were mentioned. We would estimate, so that is part of this budget is the ongoing activity with LAFCO as well as the county itself, hopefully that transition occurring. Of course, there's delays and things going on with the emergency, but possibly by December. So that is all kind of built in here. At that time, we will come back with some recommended revisions of what the second half of the year looks like. But they are all captured as part of this budget.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any questions from council at this time? No?
Yeah, I'll ask them now. Might as well, instead of going back. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
I was wondering on the tax under the general fund revenue, do you know what the percentage is property?
Is your mic on?
Thank you. Property tax versus sales tax, what the percentage is between the two?
Property tax, I'm going to get to another screen here where I have that. It's a sales tax, property tax is significant. Percentage, I'm going to do the quick math here.
Sales tax is about $8 million.
Yes, and out of a grand total of 60. So while sales tax represents a smaller amount, it is the one category that is growing.
The reason I was asking is I know there's going to be a slowing down on the collection of sales tax, correct?
Yes.
So I'm concerned about that.
Yeah,
that's correct, right?
Yes.
yes. And just at a quick glance, property taxes and related to property taxes, parcel and all of that, it represents at least a third of general fund revenues versus the 8 million. So this is, and again, that's, the sales taxes is a part of our discussion later.
The federal emergency assistance under general fund revenue, is that what we're anticipated to get from this pandemic? Or is that something else?
It is, it's a best estimate at this point. There are limitations, and we don't see blanket grants being offered, but we do see the ability to aggressively work to capture all additional costs, anything that occurred as a result of this emergency. We have a team in place in the finance department that is heading up the tracking. We have a special code for tracking all expenditures. These include overtime as well as any additional costs, technology costs that departments are incurring. Of course, a lot of that is public safety. And we have regular conference calls where we're working with departments to make sure that we capture these. But that is just an estimate.
Because my understanding, unless something gets changed in the legislation, our city's going to be hard pressed to get anything because it's based on population, and you have to be over 500,000 people in order to get it directly from the state. I mean, from the federal government. We're going to have to ask the Governor Newsom to give us our money, so I'd be pretty conservative on that figure.
And that's noted. And I will say that we're pursuing more than one avenue. Police chief forwarded yesterday an additional state distributed grant through the Department of Justice. So we're pursuing that concurrent with what is available through FEMA.
On both the revenue fund and expenditures on the general fund, are these boilerplate, or do you decide what categories are going to be on here?
Oh, these revenues are groupings of what is included. If we look at page, it's page 1, page 4 in the staff report, page 2 of the second attachment, where you see the many categories of general fund revenue, ultimately making up the 63 million in available resources. So they're logical groupings according to GFOA and best practices.
Okay. I'll be honest, I haven't gone through my entire budget book yet, so I'm going to have a lot more questions. So we're starting, so be prepared. Thank you.
Very good, thank you.
Are there any further questions? Let's continue.
All right, now a look at enterprise funds and a budget at a glance. So as with the general fund, the table contains the enterprise fund expenditures at a glance, and the table, same thing, shows the year over year, the current fiscal year budget that we are in versus the proposed upcoming 2021 proposed budget. And on the right-hand column, we see the variances. Now, in this case, we actually see some significant decreases that are noteworthy, particularly in services and supplies. Now, there's a number of things that represent this number, this large decrease, but one of them is the sunsetting of the BPU credit, which reduces expenditures. We have the anticipated decrease in water purchases, and these as a result of the well work and rehab activity that is going on, and that is all netted against the pluses and minuses, and there are many categories related to cost of sales in the enterprise funds. They function differently than the general fund. The $2 million decrease, $2.2 million decrease in capital. This anticipates the completion of several projects. So water fund project bases will decrease expenditures. And we have, just to mention one of a number of them, the gas loop on over the 26th Street Bridge, and that would represent a $600,000 decrease. And again, those explanations are listed as reference. Now look at enterprise fund revenues by type. And the majority, as no surprise, at almost 90% is electric, and the remainder is distributed between the other utilities, gas, water, and fiber revenue. And just a note on these revenues, this is distinct from the general fund, as the enterprise fund expenditures, as we'll see on the next slide, are classified as cost of sales. Now, this is over against the general fund, which derives its revenues from taxes. So the cost of sales, which occupies the majority of expenditures that we see in this pie chart, this is what it costs to deliver and sell electricity, water, gas, and fiber service to customers. And that's the basis for rates-based revenue versus taxes. We also see a reduction in debt service, and this, of course, was the result of the recent bond repricing and favorable conditions to do so. Similarly, we have kind of a small glossary for reference. So proceeds from long-term debt, that is the issuance of bond. We mentioned in lieu, that represents a transfer. Interest actually paid on the bonds. The overhead allocation, this represents administrative support for city services on behalf of the enterprise funds, where we have shared employees, but they are city employees, such as myself, performing work on behalf of the enterprise activities. And then, of course, the cost of sales, that's for all utilities. A few highlights as we look at the budget as a whole, and these are notable, that when we put this budget together prior to the majority of it prior to the emergency, we looked at the city as a whole, and the expenditures are largely at parity with our current fiscal year. In other words, departments' budgets were kept largely flat. We have a continued response to the state of emergency. We will be, in this fiscal year, as discussed earlier, continue our work with LAFCO in the County of Los Angeles for the transition of the fire department. There will be the final direction regarding the legal department. We are still moving forward with the issuance of water bonds for capital projects. And on the personnel side, current MOUs are in place. On the next two slides, we have a breakdown of, similar to those large group slides, and this is a breakdown of each city department, highlighting any changes, plus or minus. And then in the slides following, we have some of the explanations. So I mentioned that current MOUs are in place, so that's where you see some of these. It's simply a matter of either scheduled increases or increases to the cost of benefits. The small increase here in city administration is primarily the agreement in place for our regulatory advocacy that the council approved fairly recently. One swing that looks bigger than it is that here in human resources, and really that doesn't represent a change to the department budget as much as one of the major line items that is the expenditure that runs through human resources, and that is our OPEB expense, as well as there is one personnel change, and that is moving senior legal policy advisor to this department. So that represents a shift, but the majority of that is OPEB. With police, we have a much needed communications upgrade, as well as pension costs that are no surprise at all. Fire, we've mentioned some of these, but some of it is the result of current MOUs that are in place, but the majority of it represents one-time costs to Los Angeles County. We talked about the upcoming technology deployment, and that is the majority of what you see there in the information technology variance. Several departments were kept completely flat, as you can see, or there were completed projects. That's the case in finance department as well as public works, and we discussed the VPU changes. And again, all of these that were just discussed are listed for the council's and viewers' reference on the next 3 slides, or 2 slides. Great.
First question, can you explain the health increase, measure W?
Did you see that on its own? Sorry.
On health and environmental control increase 117,000, it says based on additional required position for mandated inspection, measure W bucket.
Oh, yes, excuse me. So what that represents is that is a request for a position, and it is, as mentioned, these are compliance requirements for these inspections, and Measure W funded means it is actually transferred in. This would be revenue from another government, and it is revenues that we are using to fund this position that are outside of the general fund. And that's administered.
Is there a sunset on that measure?
I'm sorry, regarding that measure?
Is there a sunset on that measure, measure W?
I'll find out. I don't believe there is.
We'll have Freddie. Freddie's here in the audience. He'll talk on it.
Your Honor, no, there is no sunset. This is the measure that was passed in LA County for stormwater. So I think the city is going to get about $900,000, and part of it is the mandated inspection that is associated with that.
And that will go to fund the position.
Fund the position?
Yes.
The position fund?
No.
Okay.
But this is my department, Public Works will be involved, and BPU will be involved in that.
Okay, so that 900,000 is going to be split between the three?
Exactly.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
I have a question. city administration increase of 40,673 regarding the regulatory asset reform. Can you explain that to me?
So this was a recently approved contract services agreement for advocacy. Specifically, the purpose is specific to protecting our sales tax base. So this activity that goes on in Sacramento on behalf not just of our city, it's really taking the lead. And this is very much a need as we see the potential for very profitable businesses to be lured out of the city, and that's what that activity, that's what that contract is seeking to protect against. Okay. Any other questions on variances from the council?
Any further questions? No, not at this time.
Excuse me,
So-
Scott. Sorry. Excuse me, Scott, just for a minute. Council, if you could please state your name before you ask your question. I've been notified that it's a little difficult to see who's asking the question online.
Okay, sorry. Scott, are you done with your presentation?
Oh, excuse me, I have one more slide, sorry. Okay, so in the next two, or in this last slide, we, as part of our accountability and transparency of reporting, we end the discussion this morning with a look at levels of staffing. And you can see the table shows the last few years as the city has looked internally for both opportunities for efficiency and process improvement. This is an ongoing activity, so that it is reflected in the levels of staffing as represented in the table. Finally, we have potential upcoming dates. As noted earlier, we expect to bring back the fee schedule forward and complete the process of the update and implement that. If directed by the council, we'll bring forward a final budget for public hearing and approve a resolution. And if adopted, the budget will be effective July 1, 2020. So that concludes our report, and we are available for any questions, comments, or direction from the council.
This is Mayor Ibarra. Council, any further questions at this time? Okay, thank you very much, Scott. We'll now go on to the consent calendar. All matters listed on the consent calendar are to be approved with one motion. Items may be removed from the consent calendar by any member of the council. Those items removed to be considered immediately after the consent calendar. Does council wish to pull any items from the consent calendar? Are there any public comments for the consent calendar? May I have a motion for the consent calendar items number 3 to 11?
I'll move. Leticia Lopez.
We have a motion by Councilmember Davis, seconded by Councilmember Gonzalez to approve the consent calendar. Mayor Ibarra?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Lopez?
Yes.
Councilmember Davis?
Yes.
Councilmember Menke?
Yes.
Councilmember Gonzalez?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you very much, City Clerk. We'll now go on to item number 12 on the businesses, human resources, agreement for Medicare group health coverage.
Human Resources Director Earl will present the report.
Good morning, Mayor and members of City Council. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, the city provides a retiree medical care supplement health plan for Medicare eligible retirees as part of the city's health insurance program. Each year, the city's health insurance broker reviews the plans and, if necessary, goes out for quotations from the insurance market to ensure that the city is receiving the most competitive rate for the benefit plans offered. This year, the current provider, Aetna, quoted a rate increase of approximately 14% Through the broker's efforts, a comparable plan with Anthem has been implemented with an increase in premiums of 4.8%. And City Council approval of the agreement with Anthem effective January 1st, 2020 is requested. The annual cost of the plan is approximately $162,000, which is partially offset by retiree premium contributions of approximately $62,000. Adequate funds are included in the current fiscal year budget, and the appropriate funds are included in the proposed fiscal year 2021 budget. That concludes my report, and I'm available for any questions you might have.
Thank you. Does council have any technical questions for staff at this time? Are there any public comments for item number 12? May I have a motion for item number 12?
I'll move.
May I have a second?
Second.
Motion by Mayor Pro Tem Lopez, seconded by Councilmember Davis, to find the proposed action exempt under CEQA and to approve and authorize the city administrator to execute the Medicare Advantage Group agreement between the City of Vernon and Blue Cross of California, doing business as Anthem Blue Cross in substantially the same form as submitted, for a total amount of approximately $182,150 for calendar year 2020. Mayor Ibarra?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Lopez?
Yes.
Councilmember Davis?
Yes.
Councilmember Menke?
Yes.
Councilmember Gonzalez?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. We'll go on
Thank
to
you.
item number 16, city administration temporary emergency moratorium on eviction at commercial property.
Good morning, Honorable Mayor and City Council members. On March 14, 2020, the City of Vernon declared a local emergency due to the outbreak of COVID-19. The pandemic has had a significant effect on the nation, regional and local economies, impacting all industries and resulting in economic hardships for all business owners. Consistent with the city's local emergency proclamation and the state executive order number 28-20, this emergency ordinance has been prepared, which would prevent evictions of commercial and nonprofit tenants impacted by COVID-19 during the emergency period. The safe harbor would apply to evictions commercial tenants in the following situations. For commercial or nonprofit properties, no landlord shall evict a commercial or nonprofit tenant from non-payment of a rent if a commercial or nonprofit tenant is unable to pay rent due to financial impacts related to COVID-19. During this moratorium, a commercial or nonprofit tenant shall also be waived any obligation for payment or late fees assessment related to electrical, water, fiber, and gas utility charges, and service charge shall not be shut off due to non-payment. The moratorium will remain in effect for the period and time set forth in State Executive Order number 28-20 through May 31st, and may be extended from time to time unless sooner terminated or repealed by the City Council. Nothing in the emergency ordinance relieves the tenant or liability for the unpaid rent, which the landlord may seek after the expiration of the local emergency, and the tenant must pay within 6 months of the expiration of the local emergency. Finally, the proposed emergency ordinance is part of the City Business Preservation COVID-19 Disaster Relief Initiative and will function to offset some of the financial burden that commercial operations in Vernon are experiencing due to slowed business and or mandated non-essential business closures. This being an emergency ordinance, if approved by the majority of the City Council, it will take effect immediately.
Thank you. Does council have any technical questions for staff?
I have one. I think there's an error in section F, F under section 5. Or 5. Maybe it should be commercial instead of residential. I'm sorry, G. Carol Menke.
Sorry,
See where it says fault by the residential tenant, I think that should be commercial.
Section 5, what?
G.
What
G
page
is
you
in
on?
George.
Page 6.
5G.
What page on the iPad?
6. It's 6 on the
Over on the right, there's a little arrow when you scroll down.
6 of 9. It's on the ordinance. Sorry.
That's okay. Section, what section?
Carol Mankey, section 5,
Yep,
subsection G,
G.
from George.
I'm looking for it also.
379. Page 379. Yeah. I believe that is correct, being that this is related to commercial eviction.
You believe it should say residential?
Oh, I believe it should say commercial, but I did not.
Mayor, members of the council, this is interim city attorney Earl Alvarez Glassman. That is correct. We'll make that change to read commercial tenancy.
And that leads me to my next question. Carol Mankey. Sorry. Why don't we have an ordinance for residents? In the same vein as this.
So the residence ordinance, we currently have a hardship application that the Housing Commission oversees. We will be going back to the Housing Commission with some sort of proposal for resident evictions in the near future.
And if I may, I might note, again, this is Earl Alvarez Glassman. Last night, the Superior Court of County of Los Angeles issued a emergency order prohibiting the filing of residential tenant evictions or the processing of residential eviction evictions, and so we can work together to see if, quite frankly, I think in any event, even if we didn't have it from a very practical standpoint, nothing's going to get processed.
I agree.
Are there any further, this is Mayor Ibarra, are there any further questions from council? Are there any public comments for item number 13? May I have a motion for item number 13?
Second by David.
Motion by Councilmember Gonzalez, seconded by Councilmember Davis to find the proposed action as exempt under CEQA and to adopt emergency ordinance number 1267 pursuant to chapter 4.4 of the city charter, enacting a temporary emergency moratorium on evictions for renters and owners of commercial properties in the city and late fee assessments and service shutoffs for rent and utility payments, with section 5G amended to change residential tenants to commercial tenants. Mayor Ibarra.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Lopez.
Yes.
Councilmember Davis.
Yes.
Councilmember Menke.
Yes.
Councilmember Gonzalez.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Great, thank you. We'll go on to item number 14, city administration, fund allocation, eligibility, and criteria for Vernon Community Fund grant. City administration.
The grant committee has proposed revisions to the program that would amend sections 2.164 through 2.166 to modify the Vernon Community Fund grant allocation provisions and eliminate the capital grant offering from the grant-making program to be aligned with the current economic trajectory of the city. The proposed capital grant, to eliminate the capital grants, is mainly to alleviate the administrative component that accompanies the evaluation of applicants, tracking of their projects, complex on-site inspections, and involved contract management. As a result of the elimination of the capital grant administration, costs for the management of the grant program are reduced. The changes are aligned with the grant maker's best practices to streamline internal operation and administrative cost. I have nothing further.
Thank you. This is Mayor Ibarra. Does council have any technical questions for staff at this time? Are there any public comments for item number 14? May I have a motion for item number 14?
I'll move. Leticia Lopez.
Mayor Pro Tem Lopez, are you okay with seconding the motion? Councilmember Davis moved.
Sure.
Thank you. Motion by Councilmember Davis, second by Mayor Pro Tem Lopez to find that the action is exempt under CEQA and introduce and conduct first reading of ordinance number 1265, amending Article 20 of Chapter 2, thank you. Sections 2.162 and 2.164 through 2.166 of the Vernon Municipal Code to modify Vernon Community Fund grant fund allocations, eligibility and criteria, and direct staff to schedule second reading and adoption at the April 21st, 2020 council meeting. Mayor Ibarra?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Lopez?
Yes.
Councilmember Davis?
Yes.
Councilmember Menke?
Yes.
Councilmember Gonzalez?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you very much. We'll now go on to item number 15, Public Works First Responders Housing Authority. Director.
Public Works Director Wall will present the report.
Dan, if you're talking, we can't hear you.
Can you hear us, Dan?
Are you asking me, Carlos?
No,
Can you hear me
Dan.
now? Can you hear me? Okay.
I can hear you.
Okay. I'll start again.
You can turn on your webcam.
Okay. I thought that was being handled. All right. We ready?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
All
Go
right.
ahead, Dan.
Honorable Mayor and members of the City Council, at its March 11th, 2020 meeting, the Vernon Housing Commission voted to eliminate its first responder policy and recommend that the City Council remove any reference to a first responder priority from the Vernon Municipal Code. The item before you is a first reading of ordinance number 1266, amending Chapter 2 of the Vernon Municipal Code to remove any reference to a first responder's priority. The first responder policy allows city and business first responders to jump ahead of everyone else in city housing lotteries and has never been used by a Vernon business first responder and has only been used by Vernon Police and Fire Department employees. With the city transitioning to Los Angeles County Fire, the policy creates a potential problem and deprives non-police and fire first responders of the opportunity to live in affordable housing. This concludes my report.
Thank you. Does council have any technical questions for staff at this time? Are there any public comments for item number 15? Please state your name and any business affiliation, if any. Good morning. Good morning, council. I'm Marisa O'Geen with the Vernon Chamber of Commerce, and I just wanted to provide our thoughts on first responders. That we support eliminating the first responder clause as part of what this is. Just to give everybody a good background, is that the Chamber of Commerce helped implement the Housing Commission to ensure that it was an independent body council. And part of that was included developing a first responders opportunity for business and residents to live in the city as a priority. Unfortunately, that definition became geared towards public safety and not necessarily for a business first responder. So in the event, business employees did not meet the criteria. So we do support eliminating it at this time, and we will continue to work with Housing Commission moving forward should that definition change or, just to discuss first responders in the city at a later time. Are there any further public comments for item number 15? Thank you. May I have a motion for item number 15?
I'll move. Leticia Lopez.
Second.
Motion by Mayor Pro Tem Lopez, seconded by Councilmember Gonzalez, to find the action exempt under CEQA, and introduce and conduct first reading of ordinance number 1266, amending Chapter 2, Section 2.125B of the Vernon Municipal Code to delete any reference to the first responders priority and direct staff to schedule second reading and adoption at the April 21st, 2020 City Council meeting. Mayor Ibarra?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Lopez?
Yes.
Councilmember Davis?
Yes.
Councilmember Menke?
Yes.
Councilmember Gonzalez?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. We'll go on to item number 16, city administration to COVID-19 emergency microloan program.
The city's COVID-19 emergency microloan program will offer support to Vernon restaurants to prevent staff reductions, offset losses related to COVID-19, and sustain operations through COVID-19 crisis. Vernon restaurants are especially impacted by the pandemic because they are primarily served the local business here, community here in Vernon. They also serve employees in and around Vernon, many of whom are no longer coming to work and/or local shelter-in-place restrictions. Other state and federal initiatives have been devised to mitigate impacts on business and workers. It is the goal of the city to participate in these efforts to offer Vernon community restaurants a fighting chance for survival. In addition to offering its own micro-lending program, the city will educate its business community on alternative programs to ensure access to all available resources. The city's community development fund has sufficient upspent dollars in fiscal year 2020 that may be reallocated to the business preservation COVID-19 disaster relief initiative. With each day that passes during the COVID-19 crisis, these businesses are at risk for reducing or eliminating staff or permanent closure, likely with no opportunity to reestablish in the future. The proposed microloan program will be streamlined, simple process for applicants and city administration. Applicants should be evaluated thoroughly on a case-by-case basis through a highly selective lens. Key points of the loan program are 0 interest for 6 to 12 month term, 3 to 5% interest loans for the 3 to 5 years. All we expect to get repayment for each loan. Available to restaurants located in the city of Vernon, must be used for reasonable working capital and operation expenses such as preventing staff reductions, offsetting losses related to COVID-19, and helping business sponsor sick pay for workers. The loan limits of $5,000 to $50,000. Funding is available through September 30th, 2020, or until the program is terminated by the city. I have nothing further.
Mayor Ibarra, I have a question. How do they qualify for a 0% term versus a 2 to 5?
So the 0% term would be if they were going to repay the loan back within 6 to 12 months. And if they choose to amortize it over a longer period of time, then there is interest accrued on their loan.
Are there any further questions?
No. How many restaurants do we have in Vernon?
We're currently we've reached out to 17 to 24 restaurants in Vernon.
Isn't this duplicative of what's being offered in the $2.2 trillion care package?
The SBC loans are being offered to small businesses. It is our anticipation that they exhaust those resources first before they come and use our resources. So yes, we are aware that the SBC program that is being available to businesses in Vernon, but we are asking them to exhaust those resources so that we don't duplicate efforts.
Do we have the money to do this?
This is going to be coming from the community grant funding program. So it would be a loan. We expect to get repaid. We have allocation of funds that are available in the community-based program. Yes.
Are there any further technical questions for staff? Are there any public comments for item number 16?
Marisa Oking with the Vernon Chamber, thank you. And I think Councilwoman, thank you for asking the questions. Those are legitimate and valid questions, and I think that I would like to hear from the rest of the council your thoughts on that. This would be taken from the set aside that we here in our city every single day, and we're giving back. These are companies that are, we have a very small restaurant population that's feeding people, 50,000 people every day, whether it's a food truck or it's Trattoria 25. If that is an opportunity, if they've exhausted all of the stimulus package and they come up short, I think it's a great way that Vernon is serving the community by providing assistance in a small way.
Are there any further technical questions or any, further comments?
Sure, I have a question. And I think Public Council Member Leticia Lopez can answer it for me. Does this fall under the purpose that the community fund was created for?
The community fund was created for all the communities surrounding Vernon, including Vernon. So I think this is a great way to use some of that money for our actual community here in Vernon. A lot of the time we give money to surrounding cities. It's rare that we give money to an organization or anything here in Vernon just because we don't have many. But I think this is a great way to give back to our own community.
Carol Mason, I guess it was my understanding that during the reform, the reason that the community fund was created was to give back, to be a good neighbor to the communities that we have not been a good neighbor to, pollution, environmental issues. So to make up for that, I didn't think it was for, if I'm mistaken.
At least my feelings for this is as positive on this is because we're giving back to our own community. It's not we're giving away the money, we're loaning it out, they're gonna repay it, the money's always gonna be there.
Well,
I think this is a positive thing, and I think going forward with this is great. Let them exhaust their other resources first and come to us. We're a community fund. You know, it doesn't, for me, giving out every other city and not giving back to our own city is what we need to do and we need to focus on right now. You know, we're helping LA, we're helping East LA, Huntington Park, Southgate, all those within the 1 mile jurisdiction.
Maywood, yeah.
Yeah, so doing this, I don't see on my end, my thoughts to it is this is a great program, especially that they're repaying it. So it's not like we're giving it away, we're using our resources to help keep business in Vernon and help grow a company that will possibly leave Vernon and bankrupt, and then we don't have businesses or even residents able to keep within our city. I feel this is a great opportunity for Vernon to shine, and this is a great opportunity to help our own community.
I agree with Mayor Ibarra. In addition, some of those restaurants employ people that live in the surrounding cities, so this helps those people as well.
There's a total of 26 restaurants, 2 of which have closed. So we reached out to up to 24 restaurants. I know that we went from 17 to 24. I'm not sure if 6 of the restaurants or 7 of the restaurants responded back, but there was interest from all of the restaurant owners to participate in the program. One of the guidelines that I gave Scott is to monitor how the SBC loans affect the businesses and if they're seeking funding from other sources and how that's going to affect their operations. So we are monitoring that. We did lose 2 restaurants through the pandemic.
I do have a question though, but during our community fund, one of the stipulations is they have to show proof that it was used for that particular thing. Are we doing a stipulation on these loans saying this money can be used towards this?
Yeah, there's guidelines there's an application and there's guidelines on how they can use the funding.
But are we asking for proof at the end?
Yes.
Are there any further questions or comments from council?
Yes, I'm being devil's advocate, Carol Mason. I'm being devil's advocate as usual. I'm for helping our businesses, of course. I just want to make sure that we don't have, I feel this way, but what is the actual mandate about the community fund? I don't know that. I'm just trying to shield the city from any liability there might be because I don't know what the mandate is in the community fund. I don't know whether it says it has to go to outside people or it can come back in. That's the only reason I'm asking that.
There's two separate funds that we've set up. One is the Community Development Fund, and then one is the Community Grant Funding. The grant funding has a grant committee that authorizes grants to allocate funds for different businesses. That's completely separate from what we're doing here. The Community Development Fund is to assist our community, to assist our neighbors in need and so forth.
Okay, that answers my question. So there is no.
There's a separation of the two different funding. One is overseen by a grant committee, and then one is overseen by City Council.
And understand that just because we loan them the money doesn't mean they're not going to go bankrupt, unfortunately. So I don't know how secure the loans will be. It's going to be against the business, correct? So
Absolutely.
Just know that it may or may not help, but I think we should throw a lifeline in anyway.
Are there any further questions from council? Are there any further public comments? May I have a motion for item number 16?
So moved.
Second. City Clerk?
Motion by Councilmember Menke, seconded by Councilmember Gonzalez, to find the action exempt under CEQA and approve the implementation of the city's COVID-19 emergency microloan program that will offer support to Vernon restaurants with an objective to prevent staff reductions, offset losses related to COVID-19, and sustain operations through the COVID-19 crisis. Sorry. Mayor Ibarra?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Lopez?
Yes.
Councilmember Davis?
Yes.
Councilmember Menke?
Yes.
Councilmember Gonzalez?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. We'll go on to item number 17, the administration grant agreement with Ultimate Health Services Corporation for COVID-19 screening and testing. City Administrator.
The following funds would come from the Community Development Fund as well. On March 25th, 2020, the city reached out to Ultimed Health Services, a 501c3 nonprofit organization, with a request to help fund their COVID-19 screening and testing operations in the southeast Los Angeles area. Ultimed provides medical care and services through clinics in the surrounding community and recently launched an outdoor assessment center where the community, both patients and non-patients, can be evaluated for COVID-19 rapidly without risking exposure in waiting rooms. Ultimed requested a total of $125,000 from the city to help sustain its COVID-19 screening testing programs that are needed to keep our community safe. On March 28, 2020, I agreed to provide an initial contribution of $50,000 in order to provide immediate support for the organization's COVID-19 screening testing services in the southeast Los Angeles region. Staff is now requesting that City Council grant Ultimed additional funds up to the requested amount. The proposal grant agreement with Ultimed in the amount of $75,000 is specifically to support operations for Ultimed outdoor COVID-19 evaluation centers. The screening testing services are available to all southeast location regions, including those who live and work in Vernon. Jeannie, are you on the there she is. So I would like to introduce Jeannie Corona, Assistant Vice President of Civic Engagement with Ultimed.
Good morning. Good morning, Honorable Mayor Ibarra and distinguished council members. My name is Jenny Carrion, and I'm the Assistant Vice President at Ultimed Healthcare Corporation, who's been serving the CELA region for over 50 years. As health centers experience a surge of patients during the novel coronavirus pandemic, resources and equipment for nonprofit community health centers are being depleted at a very fast rate. As one of the nation's largest community health centers, Ultimed services more than 300,000 patients annually and doesn't turn anyone away regardless of their ability to pay. To protect our patient and staff, Ultimed has established several outdoor medical evaluation sites in Los Angeles and Orange counties to limit COVID-19 exposure inside of our health centers. Our outdoor evaluation sites are open to anyone in the community who show symptoms regardless of their ability to pay, whether or not they're Ultimed patients and regardless of their immigration status. In order to reduce the number of symptomatic patients coming into our clinic, those who exhibit flu-like symptoms, which are similar to COVID-19 symptoms, will be assessed in their vehicle to determine how health services will be delivered. Each of our evaluation centers, unlike the ones that you've been seeing on the press, on the media, or television, are staffed by doctors and LVN nurses. It's an outdoor doctor's visit, for example. So if they are sick or they have flu-like symptoms, we're able to give a medication to treat that immediately. For each patient that is seen, the evaluation center, we're using approximately 3 gowns, 3 face shields, 2 N95 masks, 2 surgical face masks, 3 sets of